I never thought a single sentence could end a career, until my boss looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're done here, Riley. Your attitude's toxic." That was the moment something inside me snapped. For 3 years, I'd given everything to Greystone marketing. Late nights, early mornings, coffee-stained shirts, and fake smiles for clients who couldn't tell a campaign from a coloring book. I was the senior strategist, the one who made the company's biggest account go viral last year. But apparently, none of that mattered when the CEO's golden boy decided I'd become a problem. That golden boy was Ethan Price. Ethan and I had started around the same time, fresh grads with shiny dreams and sharper ambitions. He was the boss's nephew, though he pretended otherwise. Everyone knew he had connections, but I didn't care. I was confident enough in my work to earn my place. For a while, we were friendly rivals. We'd stay late together, trading ideas, ordering takeout, laughing at how clueless upper management was. But something shifted the moment my campaign started outperforming his. Suddenly, Ethan stopped sharing ideas. He stopped joking around. Instead, he started watching me, the way you'd watch a leak spreading across the ceiling, waiting for it to collapse. Then the sabotage began. Small things at first: client emails mysteriously forgotten, files missing from shared drives, my login accidentally disabled during a big presentation. I called IT so many times I could recite their hold music by heart. But every time I brought it up to our manager, she'd just sigh and say, "Riley, maybe you're just stressed. Try to keep your attitude positive." Attitude. That word became a curse. So when Ethan cornered me in the conference room after my latest presentation, the one I'd spent all week perfecting, I should have known something was coming. He smirked and said, "You know, maybe you do better in a place that appreciates your passion." 10 minutes later, HR called me in. 2 minutes after that, I was walking out with a cardboard box and a thin envelope labeled "Final Paycheck." They said it was because of my bad attitude. But deep down, I knew it was Ethan. And as I stood in the elevator, staring at my reflection in the mirrored doors, something dark and electric started to rise inside me. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. No, I was going to make sure Ethan Price regretted ever crossing me. He thought firing me was the end. He had no idea it was just the beginning. Looking back, the signs were all there. I just didn't want to see them. Ethan had always been charming, the kind of guy who could talk his way out of a burning building. He knew how to make everyone feel like they were in on some private joke, like he was letting them peek behind the curtain. But I should have realized he was only ever pulling strings. The first red flag came during the Bennett account, our biggest client. I'd stayed up 3 nights straight rewriting the campaign pitch after the client suddenly changed direction. When I presented it, Ethan sat there, smiling like a proud brother. But 2 days later, he presented my exact concept to the board as his own. When I confronted him about it, he laughed. "Relax, Riley. We're a team. What's mine is yours, right?" I wanted to believe him. Maybe I needed to. I was already exhausted, trying to prove I wasn't difficult or emotional, words people used when a woman pushed back too hard. The second red flag came soon after, those late-night phone calls. I'd be wrapping up, ready to go home, and I'd hear him in his office, whispering. Sometimes my name would slip out, followed by long pauses. Once, I caught a glimpse of the caller ID reflected on his glass door. Uncle D. That's when I learned the truth. Uncle D wasn't just family. He was Douglas Greystone, the CEO himself. Ethan's golden ticket. From that point on, things got weird fast. Ethan started getting exclusive meetings with clients I'd worked with for months. My budgets were slashed, my ideas were postponed, and my name mysteriously vanished from team credits. When I asked about it, HR said it was an oversight. Sure. Just like every other oversight that somehow worked in Ethan's favor. The stress started bleeding into my personal life. I'd lie awake at night replaying every meeting, every email, every fake smile I'd forced through clenched teeth. I stopped eating properly. My apartment looked like a storage room, half-drunk coffee cups, unopened mail, clothes I couldn't bother folding. My friends told me to quit. "It's not worth it, Riley," they said. "He's playing you." But quitting felt like letting him win. So I smiled through the migraines, laughed through the whispers, and kept telling myself it would all even out. Hard work pays off. That's what I'd always believed. Until one morning, I walked in to find Ethan sitting at my desk. My computer on. My files open. He looked up and said, almost too casually, "Hey, just needed to grab a few of your reports for the presentation. You don't mind, do you?" Something about the way he said it, too smooth, too rehearsed, made my stomach twist. That's when I felt it for the first time. That cold, crawling suspicion that maybe Ethan wasn't just ambitious. Maybe he was planning something much worse. I didn't find out the truth all at once. It came in pieces, like broken glass scattered across a floor, cutting deeper the more I tried to pick it up. 2 days after Ethan sat at my desk, everything exploded. It started with an email. A company-wide announcement. Please congratulate Ethan Price on his promotion to Senior Marketing Strategist and lead on the Bennett Global campaign. My title. My project. My work. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The words blurred as my pulse roared in my ears. I reread the email a dozen times, hoping I'd miss something, maybe my name somewhere at the bottom, a special thanks or a collaboration credit. But there was nothing. Just Ethan. He had taken everything I'd built and stamped his name on it. When I stormed into the conference room, he was already there, smiling that perfect, smug smile that used to charm everyone and now made me want to scream. "Congrats, Riley," he said. "I couldn't have done it without you." Without me. My voice cracked. "You literally couldn't have. I wrote that campaign from scratch." He leaned back in his chair, perfectly calm. "You're overreacting again. This is exactly the kind of attitude Douglas was worried about. Maybe it's time you took a step back and reflected." That word again. Attitude. I could feel my hands shaking. "You stole my work, Ethan. You went behind my back and took credit for it." He sighed, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "Riley, no one's stealing anything. The company decided the project needed a new face. Someone more approachable." I stared at him, realization dawning. "You mean someone related to the CEO?" His eyes flickered, just for a second. That tiny slip told me everything. The calls to Uncle D. The missing files. The budget cuts. The whispers in HR about my temper. It was all part of his setup, every move designed to push me out so he could climb higher. By the time I got back to my desk, my computer login was already disabled. HR was waiting with that same empty smile, that same scripted tone. "Riley, this isn't working out. We appreciate your time here, but we've decided to move in a different direction." They didn't even let me clear my desk. Security handed me a cardboard box while Ethan stood in the hallway, pretending to check his phone. But when I passed him, I caught it, that half smirk, the one that said checkmate. Outside, the autumn wind hit like a slap. I stood there with my box of things, my mug, my planner, a few pens, and felt the weight of it all. The betrayal. The humiliation. The silence of everyone who knew but said nothing. But beneath the heartbreak, something else was stirring. Something sharp. I wasn't just angry. I was awake. He thought he'd buried me. But all he'd really done was light the fuse. For a few days after I got fired, I didn't do much of anything. I'd wake up at noon, stare at the ceiling, and replay everything in my head like some cruel highlight reel. Ethan's smirk, Ours condescending tone, the way everyone avoided my eyes as I packed my things. My apartment felt smaller every day, like the walls were closing in around my shame. I told myself it wasn't fair. I told myself I didn't deserve this. But mostly, I just felt tired. Then, on the fourth morning, something strange happened. I got an email, an automated one, from the project management software we'd used at Greystone. It was a notification about the Bennett campaign presentation deck. Apparently, my old login was still connected to a shared folder. Out of curiosity, or maybe masochism, I clicked the link. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was my deck. My slides, my copy, my graphics, Even the stupid placeholder tagline I'd written at 2 a.m. and meant to replace later. The only thing different was the name on the title page, prepared by Ethan Price. He hadn't even bothered to change the metadata. My name was still listed as the original author. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. And then, for the first time since being fired, I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. More like the kind that bubbles up from disbelief and fury and something wild underneath. Because suddenly, the fog lifted. Ethan hadn't beaten me. He'd just exposed how sloppy and arrogant he really was. That's when I realized, I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to beg for justice. I just needed proof, and patience. I opened my hard drive and started digging through old files, backups, drafts. Every time-stamped email, every version of the Bennett proposal I'd ever sent. Each document was a breadcrumb leading straight to the truth. As I worked, something inside me began to shift. The heartbreak started to harden, not into bitterness, but into resolve. For the first time in weeks, I felt in control. I wasn't just the woman who got fired over a bad attitude. I was the woman they underestimated, the one they thought would go quietly. But I wasn't going quietly. That night, I poured myself a cup of coffee and opened a fresh notebook. On the first page, I wrote 3 words in bold letters. Make them pay. It wasn't about revenge for the sake of it. It was about reclaiming my name, my work, my dignity. Ethan had taken my job, my project, and tried to take my reputation. But now, I was taking everything back, piece by piece, proof by proof. And when I was done, the world was going to see exactly who really had the bad attitude. I made a list and treated it like a battlefield map. No melodrama, just cold steps, each one an arrow aimed straight at Ethan's heart. The truth I pulled every draft, every version, every time-stamped email I could find. My hard drive was a maze of files labeled Bennett_V1, Bennett_Final2, Riley_Bennett_draft. Each one had a date and a fragile little signature. My author metadata. I exported them into a new folder and made 3 copies, local, cloud, and a thumb drive I hid in my sock drawer. Proof, redundantly stored IT logs became my allies. I called an old contractor friend, Jonah, who owed me favors and still had access to some network tools I no longer did. He agreed to pull access logs for the shared drive and the presentation folder. The logs showed what I suspected: repeated access from Ethan's account late at night, files copied and renamed, my versions opened minutes before he presented them. It wasn't interpretation. It was a trail. I drafted a careful, unemotional email to my main contact at Bennett. Not accusatory, just a plain request. Can you confirm who you met with, and who sent the final deck? The reply was polite and vague. Good enough. Later, when I pushed, a junior client aide admitted they had been confused about the project handoff. That admission would matter. People remembered things when anonymity protected them. I started collecting statements, off the record, from co-workers who'd seen Ethan dragging files to meetings, from the junior designer who remembered my 2 a.m. placeholder tagline, from Hours temp who'd overheard the Uncle D calls. Names were omitted, notes were time-stamped. If Ethan was sloppy enough to retitle my deck without changing metadata, he might be sloppy in other ways. I created a decoy slide deck, identical to the real one in structure but with a hidden watermark on one slide linking to a personal web page only I could access. It was petty and brilliant. If he presented the decoy, the page hits would show up in my analytics, time-stamped. Proof plus humiliation. I emailed a labor attorney and got a consult. I didn't file yet. The threat of formal action would be more useful once I had the dossier sealed and the public reveal primed. Through it all, Ethan strutted like a peacock. He posted a selfie with the Bennett logo on LinkedIn, RSVP'd to award night invites, and emailed Douglas glowing updates. He smelled invincibility. But the tension was electric. Every proof I gathered tightened the noose, and every move I made had to be quieter than his arrogance. One wrong leak now and HR would bury me again. One wrong public step and I'd look vengeful instead of vindicated. On the calendar I circled 2 dates, the Bennett showcase, when Ethan would present to the client, and the day I'd go public. I could almost hear the conference room hum, his practice jokes, the bored faces, the moment he clicked the slide that would undo him. I slept poorly, heart stuttering with equal parts fear and exhilaration. The fuse was lit. The room at the end of it was bright and dangerous. Tomorrow, Ethan would feel untouchable. Tomorrow, I planned to make sure he wasn't. The Bennett showcase felt like a gladiator arena. Glass-walled conference room, beige carpet, the client team sprinkled like judges. Ethan arrived first, grin sharpened, suit pressed so perfectly it looked like armor. He greeted Douglas with a confident handclasp and planted himself at the head of the table like a man who already owned the outcome. I almost didn't go. Then I remembered the 3 copies of my folder, Jonah's logs, the timestamps, the anonymous notes, and the decoy page waiting like a trap. I walked in under the pretense of observing the market, a neutral face, a calmness I'd had to practice like a new language. No one stopped me. That was the point. Ethan opened with a polished slide that had once been mine. He talked about team synergy, about vision and leadership. He clicked to the next slide, and then, almost casually, he clicked the one I'd baited. The watermark link activated. The projector hiccuped for a heartbeat that felt like a prison door swinging open, and then the big screen filled not with a client's mood board but with my webpage. Bold, clean, the title The Truth, Bennett Campaign in black. A murmur ran through the room. Ethan froze, eyes flicking to the screen. For a second, he tried to laugh it off. Technical glitch, he said. Someone in Bennett's IT frowned. Douglas' expression had changed from smug to thinly veiled alarm. I watched as the page loaded the first piece of evidence, a version history list with timestamps and my name, every draft, every edit. The next pane pulled up Jonah's redacted access logs showing Ethan's account copying files at 2:12 a.m., 2:46 a.m., 3:03 a.m., times he claimed to be at networking events. The third pane showed the client aids message. We were told the deck would be presented by Ethan. We were confused at the handoff. Ethan stood. This is malicious, he began. His voice broke under the weight of the room. Douglas' chair scraped back. What is this? He asked. But it wasn't anger. It was calculation. He looked at Ethan like a man who suddenly saw a hole in his inheritance. I stepped forward, heartbeat steady now. Those timestamps are Greystone server logs, I said. Those drafts are mine. Jonah can verify the logs. The client was never informed of a handoff. You presented my work as your own. The room inhaled. The client's lead, a woman with a steel bob, tapped through the pages, eyes widening. We need an explanation, she said softly. If these are our materials, we need the original author at the table. Douglas opened his mouth, closed it. Ethan's face drained of color. Phones came out. Someone filmed. A hand waved in my face, but I didn't flinch. The Bennett team messaged their legal. Douglas' usual composure fractured into acrimony. Security hovered like vultures. Within an hour, Ethan was escorted out, not with the quiet dignity of promotion but the cold efficiency of someone under investigation. Douglas demanded answers. Bennett paused the contract. Someone from HR called my name and begged me to meet. I refused. Outside the building, the first LinkedIn posts began to appear. A screenshot here, a caption there. Within the day, my webpage got thousands of hits. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged congratulations and disbelief. I felt the hot rush of vindication, but it was quieter than I expected. Standing under the city's washed sky, box of old company pens tucked under my arm like a relic, I felt hollow and whole at once. He'd lost the career he stole. I'd reclaimed my truth. But as my phone buzzed with new notifications, emails from lawyers, from journalists, from recruiters, another sound threaded through the noise. The soft, certain typing of someone who wasn't finished. 2 weeks after the showcase, Greystone Marketing wasn't the same company anymore. The Bennett account was gone, pulled within 48 hours of the incident. Their legal team demanded an internal audit, and when the truth surfaced, it wasn't pretty. Ethan's emails, access logs, and even his own text messages confirmed what I'd already proven. He had stolen my work, manipulated internal reports, and coordinated with Douglas to have me labeled unmanageable. In other words, they'd fired the wrong person. Ethan was terminated effective immediately, but corporate speak couldn't soften the fall. Word spread fast. Clients withdrew, investors lost faith, and the nephew's golden boy glow dimmed into a stain on the family name. I heard rumors he tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, but screenshots have a way of speaking louder than apologies. Douglas, ever the opportunist, offered me a settlement, hush money dressed as reconciliation. I declined. Then I posted my side of the story on LinkedIn, calm and factual, with every receipt neatly documented. It went viral within a day. Messages poured in, thousands of people thanking me for standing up, for showing that silence protects only the powerful. Former co-workers shared their own experiences. Recruiters reached out. Bennett's CEO herself called, offering me a position on their internal brand team, not out of pity, but respect. And for the first time in months, I felt the air around me clear. I took the job. I decorated my new desk with that same old coffee mug, the one I'd carried out of Greystone in a cardboard box. A symbol, not of defeat, but of survival. Every morning I filled it, not with bitterness, but with the taste of freedom. Last I heard, Ethan had moved back home, applying for jobs outside marketing. Every company that did a reference check found my case summary online. It wasn't vindictiveness. It was accountability. The same kind he denied me. And Douglas. He quietly retired. Turns out a bad attitude toward corruption can make the truth burn hotter than any brand campaign. Funny, isn't it? They said my attitude was the problem. But it turns out, that attitude was my armor. Because when someone tries to bury you with lies, you don't stay underground. You grow roots and rise taller. Now, whenever someone tells me I'm too intense, I just smile and think of Ethan's face the moment the projector glitched. The moment the truth finally spoke for itself. Fire Poetic justice. They fired me for having a spark, so I became the fire that burned down their illusion. Fire. So tell me, have you ever been betrayed like that? Ever had someone steal your work, your credit, your voice? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're still fighting your own Ethan, hit that subscribe button. Because this isn't just revenge. It's redemption. And we're just getting started.